Your grandmother would not recognize what grandparenting looks like today. I'm serious. The way we raise grandchildren now is so different from just 30 years ago that it might as well be a completely different job. And here's the kicker. Some of these changes are making grandkids happier and healthier than ever before. But others? They're creating problems nobody saw coming. Let me paint you a picture. In 1990, the average grandparent saw their grandchildren once a week, usually on Sundays for dinner. Today, 40% of grandparents provide regular childcare, sometimes 5 days a week. That's not visiting. That's practically raising them. The role has transformed from occasional visitor to essential caregiver, and it's reshaping families in ways we're only beginning to understand. Think about your own grandparents for a second. What did they do when you visited? Mine sat in their chairs, told stories, and maybe slipped me a few dollars. They didn't run around playing video games or driving me to soccer practice. They didn't text me memes or follow me on social media. The relationship was formal, respectful, and honestly, a little distant. But was that necessarily worse? That's the question we need to explore. The first massive difference is technology, and it goes way deeper than you think. Modern grandparents are navigating a digital landscape that didn't exist before. They're FaceTiming grandkids across the country. They're learning TikTok dances to connect with teenagers. They're monitoring screen time and dealing with cyberbullying concerns. Traditional grandparents never had to worry about whether their grandchild was spending too much time on an iPad, because iPads didn't exist. But here's where it gets really interesting. This technology is actually strengthening some grandparent-grandchild relationships. A grandmother in Florida can read bedtime stories to her grandson in Seattle every single night via video call. That kind of daily connection was impossible just 20 years ago. Distance used to mean you saw grandkids maybe twice a year. Now distance is just a screen tap away. The emotional closeness can actually be greater despite the physical distance. However, technology also creates new tensions. Modern grandparents often feel pressure to keep up with digital trends to stay relevant to their grandkids. They worry about being seen as old-fashioned or out of touch. Traditional grandparents didn't face this anxiety because everyone accepted that older generations simply lived differently. There was no expectation that grandma would understand the latest youth culture. Today, there's an unspoken pressure to bridge that gap, and it's exhausting for many seniors. The second major shift is in parenting philosophy, and this causes more conflict than almost anything else. Traditional grandparents raise their kids with strict discipline, rigid schedules, and clear hierarchies. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Children were seen and not heard. Respect meant obedience, period. Modern parents reject most of this approach. They practice gentle parenting, positive reinforcement, and democratic family structures. And when grandparents step in to help, these conflicting philosophies collide. Imagine this scenario. A modern mom tells her mother-in-law not to give the kids candy before dinner. Grandma thinks this is ridiculous because she raised 5 healthy kids who ate candy whenever they wanted. She sees her daughter-in-law as overprotective and controlling. The daughter-in-law sees grandma as undermining her authority and disrespecting her parenting choices. Both feel hurt and misunderstood. This exact situation plays out in millions of homes every single day. Traditional grandparents had it easier in one specific way. Their adult children generally parented the same way they did because that's all anyone knew. There was one accepted approach to raising kids, give or take some minor variations. Today, parenting methods are diverse, researched, and hotly debated. Modern grandparents have to navigate attachment parenting, free-range parenting, helicopter parenting, and a dozen other philosophies. It's like learning a new language just to babysit your own grandkids. The third difference is the sheer amount of responsibility modern grandparents carry. Traditional grandparents were supplemental. They enhanced family life but weren't essential to its functioning. Modern grandparents are often critical infrastructure. With both parents working full-time in most families, grandparents fill the childcare gap. They're doing school pickups, helping with homework, making dinners, and managing bedtime routines. Some are essentially co-parenting without having any official authority. This creates a strange dynamic. Modern grandparents have more responsibility but often less respect for their opinions. They're expected to follow the parents' rules exactly, even when those rules contradict their own experience and judgment. Traditional grandparents had less involvement but more autonomy. When you visited grandma's house, you followed grandma's rules. Nobody questioned it. Today, parents want grandparents to babysit but only exactly how the parents would do it. That's a recipe for resentment on both sides. Financially, the differences are staggering. Traditional grandparents might slip grandkids some pocket money or buy birthday presents. Modern grandparents are funding college educations, paying for sports equipment, covering medical bills, and sometimes supporting their adult children too. The average grandparent now spends over $2,000 per year per grandchild on various expenses. Many are delaying retirement or returning to work specifically to help their families financially. Why the change? Economic pressures have intensified dramatically. Housing costs have skyrocketed. Student loan debt has exploded. Healthcare expenses have multiplied. Young families today face financial challenges their parents never encountered at the same age. Grandparents see their children struggling and feel compelled to help. It's not optional anymore. It's survival. Traditional grandparents lived in an era when one income could support a family. That world is gone. The fourth shift involves health and longevity. Modern grandparents are healthier, more active, and living longer than any previous generation. A 70-year-old today has the physical capability of a 60-year-old from 30 years ago. They're running marathons, traveling the world, and maintaining busy social lives. Traditional grandparents were often slowing down significantly by their 60s. They embraced a quieter, more sedentary lifestyle. The rocking chair on the porch wasn't just a stereotype. It was reality for many. This vitality is wonderful, but it also creates scheduling conflicts. Modern grandparents want to help with grandkids, but they also have their own lives, hobbies, and goals. They might say no to babysitting because they have a yoga class or a trip planned. Traditional grandparents rarely had competing priorities. Their social calendar was less packed. Family always came first because there wasn't much else going on. Today's grandparents are juggling multiple roles and sometimes family doesn't win. Geographic distance has changed too. Traditional families often lived in the same town for generations. Grandparents were down the street or across town. Sunday dinners happened because everyone lived within a 10-minute drive. Modern families are scattered across states or even countries. Career opportunities pull young adults away from their hometowns. Grandparents might see grandkids only on holidays or special occasions. The spontaneous drop-in visit is becoming extinct. Yet some modern grandparents are making radical choices to close that distance. They're relocating to be near grandchildren, selling homes they've lived in for decades, leaving friends and communities behind. This level of sacrifice was less common traditionally because families stayed put. The decision to move for grandkids shows how central this relationship has become to modern grandparents' identity and happiness. It's both beautiful and a little sad that such drastic measures feel necessary. Cultural expectations have evolved too. Traditional grandparents had clearly defined roles. Grandma baked cookies and knitted. Grandpa told stories and fixed things. These stereotypes were limiting, but they were also comfortable. Everyone knew what to expect. Modern grandparents are breaking these molds. Grandmas are tech-savvy entrepreneurs. Grandpas are emotionally available and nurturing. The roles are fluid, which is liberating but also confusing when there's no script to follow. Divorce and blended families add another layer of complexity. Traditional grandparents usually dealt with intact nuclear families. Modern grandparents navigate step-grandchildren, ex-in-laws, and complicated custody arrangements. They might have grandkids they rarely see because of a divorce. They might be asked to treat step-grandchildren exactly like biological ones. These situations require emotional intelligence and flexibility that traditional grandparenting rarely demanded. The information age has transformed how grandparents access parenting knowledge. Traditional grandparents relied on their own experience and maybe one dog-eared copy of Drive. Spock. Modern grandparents have Google, parenting blogs, YouTube tutorials, and online support groups. They can research the latest child development theories or learn about new safety standards. This access to information is empowering, but it can also be overwhelming. There's so much conflicting advice that it's hard to know what's actually right. Social media has created a new phenomenon too. Grandparents are now documenting and sharing their grandparenting experiences online. They're posting photos, joining Facebook groups, and even becoming influencers. Traditional grandparents kept their family lives private. The idea of broadcasting your relationship with your grandkids to the world would have seemed bizarre. Today, it's normal. Some grandparents have thousands of followers watching their grandparenting journey. It's a completely new dimension to the role. Despite all these changes, some things remain beautifully constant. The love between grandparents and grandchildren transcends generational differences. Whether you're a traditional grandparent baking pies or a modern one playing Minecraft, the core relationship is about connection, love, and passing down wisdom. The methods change, but the meaning doesn't. Grandchildren still light up when grandparents arrive. Grandparents still feel that unique joy that comes from watching the next generation grow. So what's really better? Honestly, both approaches have strengths and weaknesses. Traditional grandparenting offered stability, clear boundaries, and less stress. Modern grandparenting offers closer relationships, more involvement, and greater flexibility. The ideal probably lies somewhere in the middle. Taking the warmth and wisdom of traditional grandparenting and combining it with the engagement and openness of modern approaches creates something special. If you're a modern grandparent feeling overwhelmed, remember this. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to master every technology or agree with every parenting trend. Your presence and love matter more than your Instagram skills. And if you're an adult child working with your parents on grandparenting, have patience. They're navigating a role that looks nothing like what they experienced with their own grandparents. Communication and grace go a long way. The truth is, grandparenting has always been about adapting to the needs of each new generation. Our grandparents did it their way. We're doing it ours. And our grandchildren will probably revolutionize it again when their time comes. The constant change is actually the most traditional thing about it.